fiction. The actual mechanisms of how they work is what I'll be revealing. We are now going to turn to the presentations. Listen very carefully as I reveal to you 150 years of fraud. Those frauds are coming to an end. In other words, the legal fiction name lease, because they're all on leases, is coming to an end. However, if you, the general public, are not educated on how the legal name fiction works and how the fiction has captured the millions of men and women on this planet, you will be none of the wiser. Because of this, I'm going to ask you to share this video, share this presentation with as many people as you can, download it and upload it onto your own channels. The first presentation, we're now going to go to the first presentation, and what you are looking at is the Wikipedia page on Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie. Agatha Christie is one of the most widely sold author on this planet. She's one of the most sought after in terms of publication. Famous for her works and novels. Novels means novelty. You will see that it says Agatha Christie, and you see her face, the face that we have all come to know in English literature as being the queen of English literature. Her name, as it goes further in, says it's Dame Agatha Mary Clarissa Christie, Lady Marwan, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what is known as a legal fiction. Fiction means it's a lie, it's a shadow. Even Agatha Christie is a fiction name. And there is no hiding in this, because your knowledge is now going to expand way beyond our own atmosphere. This is the way that all fiction writers and all legal fictions advertise on a global scale that we, as in the many plurals of the legal fiction, are operating in 100% fiction. In other words, it's 100% the category in a library of a fiction novel. This includes all public officials, astronauts, pilots, not necessarily commercial pilots. I'll repeat it again just in case I've not got my message across. The global federal style of advertising to the entire planet that such a woman or such a man or such a politician or such an astronaut or such a religious leader or just a religious man or woman like a bishop or a reverend, the way that they would advertise to the entire world that we are a fiction, that they are a fiction, operating in fiction, is to write out the name like this. So Agatha Christie, the legal fiction name, is advertising to the entire planet that I'm a creator and maker of fiction. I am a writer and I am a narrator of fiction. In other words, there is no reality in what I say or do. This is the universal format in every country in the world. Insofar as that she has done this, she has done nothing wrong, because she is openly telling you the truth. As you go further, you will see the word DBE, Most Excellent Order of the British Empire. Listen carefully. It's in brackets. Or is it in brackets? The answer is no, it's not in brackets. It is the legal fiction name that has the title of Most Excellent Member of the British Empire. It is the legal fiction name and not the birth name. And as you move to the right, you will see NEE. What this means is that the birth name, this is the style in which public broadcasts are made, that the birth name itself is Miller. The birth name on here, ladies and gentlemen, apart from Miller, is nowhere else to be found. What does this mean? It means the face itself that is synonymous with those books of the legal fiction name called Agatha Christie may or may not actually be that of the original birth name that generated or created the legal fiction to write the fiction. This is the style in which the advertising on a global scale to distinguish that which is fact and to distinguish that which is fiction is denoted, portrayed, and advertised. So what I am saying, ladies and gentlemen, is that not even this name or this face, you do not know who generated it. You do not know if it was the publishers that owned the legal fiction name or that face, which could be an actor or an actress. The point is, you do not know. And if you allow your imagination, as it has been doing so for nearly 150 years, you walk into the trap that you now, the Americans and the rest of the world, have found yourself in by blindly following the legal fiction's name, denoting itself and advertising to the world that we are nothing more than a fiction, caricatures in a novel. And you can see that the lady herself, if it is a lady, I cannot say because I do not know. I do not know what the birth name is or what the birth face looks like 50 or 60 years later. The word is that I do not know. And what I do not know, I am not going to create an image in my head pretending that I know. Because when I do that, or when you do that, you're going to make yourself look very foolish. As you now sit in your homes and in your cars watching to this presentation, that you have been duped into contracting with a legal fiction name convincingly through all manner of manipulation to get you to believe that it's a fact. So, I have made it very clear that the name itself is a legal fiction, fiction, denoting to the whole world that it's a fiction. Now, when you go to the bottom of her picture, you will see that her pen name is also different, as in a radio handle, a disc jockey's name as opposed to a birth name. All universally saying that this is fiction, 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 fiction. She has never moved out of the category of fiction in name, by face, by publication. A pen name is different from a birth name, which means it is not factual. And you cannot make contract with a legal fiction name with that of an autograph. So you can see even her signature, which is a facsimile, of her legal fiction, itself is false, because he or she, that face, is signing with a fiction. Lies beget lies, fiction begets fiction. And she's not lying to you. But fiction does beget fiction, and that's what she's displaying. Or he. I cannot give her or him a sex because I do not know. And I do not know. You understand what I'm saying? Nowhere is there to be found an autograph letting you know the entirety of that face, of the facsimile signature, which is a simulation of nature, not nature, and no autograph, which is a graph of your autonomy, is to be found. And she's openly staying in all manner of styles that it's all just fiction. You understand this. You understand this because you are looking at a screen. And I'm the plenipotentiary judge educating you on a global scale. Now, we're going to look at Neil Armstrong. Remember what I said. Do not allow your imagination to go places where the facts are not. Because if it does that, that in itself becomes a fictionary imagery in your mind. When I say Neil Armstrong, the images that are flooding into your mind is that of a man stepping onto the moon. Whether they went there or not is neither here nor there. But listen to the argument. Listen to the logical denominator that I am using to describe to you. Stay with the facts, not the imagination. If I have trained all my life to become an airplane pilot, a pilot for the Navy, a professor in a university, and trained to go to the moon as the first man on the moon, I as a man, I have done this. Why would I credit an effigy? Why would I credit a legal fiction name, a pen name, a pseudonym? Why would I allow a fiction caricature to take benefit and to take credit for all those things that the man has done? And Neil Armstrong is pasted there. That's the corporate name. That's the legal fiction name. The birth name is Neil Aldrin Armstrong. What you got to distinguish, was it the legal fiction that went to the moon as fiction, as openly advertising to the entire planet that it is a fiction that went somewhere? We do not know where it went. We do not know if the birth name went to the moon or did not go. But we do not go where we don't have the facts. But we do have the facts in front of us. NASA itself, ladies and gentlemen, is openly advertising that we are a legal fiction. And as long as we are able to hypnotize convincingly the entire world's population that we're in space or being in moon, on the moon, or under the moon, or whatever it is, that in itself has convinced you to partake in the legal fiction name. Because you will not be able to distinguish that which is a man, that which is a fact, and that which is a facsimile. So I ask you again, and it's a genuine question. Why would I credit an effigy, a Tom and Jerry cartoon, a Donald Duck? Why would I do that? Why would I say Donald Duck was the first man on the moon? Why would I do this, ladies and gentlemen? And on Wikipedia it goes on to say under his name, the first human being to be two university professor. I read that kind of wrong, but the point I'm making is that human means the many colors of a man. And the many colors of a man is the many legal fictions that a fact can shadow. In other words, if you shed a light on me and you see 1,000 shadows behind me, that's how many names I can create as part of my legal fiction name. Fiction begets fiction. Do you understand what I have said? These people have so many legal fiction names, you do not even know that face is real. It has a flag. The picture has a flag. And it's not yellow fringed, which means it's not captured. There is more going on in Neil Armstrong's uniform than we can imagine. But we stick with the facts, and we're not going to allow imagination to say whether it was a conspiracy or not. When they're openly advertising, to the entire world that fiction begets fiction. We are looking at David Wayne Miller's Wikipedia page. And on top, you'll see, because he did not create this Wikipedia page of himself, you will see that on top is the format of a corporate enterprise. This is how corporations write their name, without the punctuations. And further, you will see David Wayne Miller, how he punctuates his name, distinguishing that of a fact from a fiction. The Wikipedia is owned by the federal government, and I am directly involved with the federal government to make sure that it keeps its contracts and honors its position as a plenipotentiary judge and as a chief federal postal court judge. You can clearly distinguish that David Wayne Miller is a fact, as fact is. And any other ways of writing his name is a legal fiction created by other people. He never partaked of fiction. When he created his language technology, he made it very, very clear. It is the end of fiction. If you put my name into Google, Yahoo, or Bing, you will see me as I am, with the full colons, hyphens, Kishon Christopher. Publicly advertising that I am not a legal fiction, that I am who I say I am, in the inside and the outside. and the shadows that may cast because of a light source are just shadows. Ladies and gentlemen, it is important for NASA, for Washington, D.C., for every single government and corporation on this planet, including the privateers that are stealing homes in South Africa and all manner of places. All over the world, it's happening to millions of people, are all done on the back of a legal fiction name that was generated for you. And because you are so used to bringing Agatha Christie into your life as if she is the actual author of what the book that you are writing, when she is publicly saying it is a pen name, when you invite Neil Armstrong or NASA into your lives, you are openly accepting a legal fiction into your lives. So it is for and is that easy for the banks and the corporations that work for these banks, which are private banks, private, not public, for you to walk into mortgages, debt pledges, university educations that say nothing about nothing. If they want to create a new post as a professor in a university, they just make up a word like a pronoun and give it a professor title to make a lot of noise in the news, to generate more noise. You remember that scene, ladies and gentlemen, in The Matrix, the new one, where she turns around and says, do you remember The Matrix? How much noise it pumps into your head. 99.9% of the images that you have in your mind are not factual. They're not images in the real world, the factual world. They are part of an imaginary world. You do not even have foods that you consume in your head as a factual image. You have Kentucky Fried Chicken, McDonald's, mortgages, banks, politicians, which are all legal fiction name, and it is important for them to remain that legal fiction name because they are incapable of creativity or producing anything. Your government, Washington, D.C., is a legal fiction. NASA is a legal fiction. The men and women that run it are legal fictions. Your presidents, your prime ministers, your religious leaders, your popes, your synagogues, your mosques are all legal fictions. And this is the mechanism in which how they captured the entire world's population into giving up their factual ways of life for a cartoon. The page that you're now looking at is Tony Blair. He is a very good example of what a legal fiction is. But when a legal fiction does harm to men and women, their artistry collides with the fact like a loose statue, and men and women die of that statue falling on them, then the man himself in his private and public capacity becomes fully liable. And insofar it is my duty, as it is your duty, to put these people in prison. And so it is that I need your help for research, finances, and I've put into the description bar how you can help me further so these legal fiction names no longer terrorize the entire planet and cause the death of men and women. It does not matter, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a legal fiction name or not. If that legal fiction name sheds blood, it is the man that sheds the blood, it is the woman. And the legal fiction that perpetrated such crimes, like Tony Blair, go to prison. Tony Blair itself, of course, is a legal fiction, and any convictions that you see on his name will also be a legal fiction conviction. His real name is Anthony Charles Linton Blair. That is, privately, in his full commercial liability, is liable. And on New Year's Day or Christmas Day, as part of a so-called honors list by another group known as the Principalities, which is another legal fiction, it gave him the title of Sir. But who is it, ladies and gentlemen, that has the title of Sir? Is it the birth name? Let's have a look. Sir Anthony Charles Linton Blair. As if a principality with a legal fiction can ever protect itself from the fact. Ladies and gentlemen, fiction cannot protect you. Fiction cannot protect Anthony Charles Linton Blair for the activities of his other legal fiction name. When they collide and do damage to men, they go to prison. Man being the species. Listen very carefully what I'm also about to tell you. We're now looking at a page called End of Israel, which I put on sometime last year. As I said to you, ladies and gentlemen, for 150 years, the mass media, the politicians, the universities, the schools, your councils have been slowly and surely lying to you about the things that are really going on as to opposed to what the fiction world is going on. The newspapers have been reporting on fiction, on the legal fiction's activities, and totally and utterly omitting completely what the facts are. Hence they're called reporters. Hence no journalist ever claims to be a journalist now, or a correspondent as they used to be. So much so, ladies and gentlemen, you, the general public, go ever hungry and thirsty because you are fed lies after lies. The legal fiction here is called Israel. Israel, like the United States, like the United Kingdom, like India, are all legal fictions. They have no standing in law. Those contracts have a 99-year lease on them. Israel, just like Northern Ireland, just like the rest of the planet, of the 185 countries in the world, which is another word for post office. Remember, no country can be called a country unless it has a treaty with the Universal Postal Union. All that, ladies and gentlemen, is coming to an end. The lease on this planet means plan to let, has come to an end. Hence you are birthed into the corona period. Area 51, ladies and gentlemen, is another word for Washington, D.C. and its other various outposts, including Nevada. That too, legal fiction of Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, is coming to an end. Like Israel, like Northern Ireland, which has already come to an end. Like United Kingdom, It's just the rest of the world have yet to catch on. India is also coming to an end. It's a legal fiction. Africa is a legal fiction. Do you understand this? The word itself only came about 150 years ago. Because if you claim to be a native of Africa, then you are claiming to be a legal fiction. You are claiming to be MacDonald, Ronald MacDonald in the lands. The legal fiction, ladies and gentlemen, perpetrates every part of your life in the mass media, in space, on paper, and the rest of it. Hence, human beings, albeit men and women, find it very challenging to actually put their thoughts on paper and execute it with precision. Thanks to the work that I have done with my tricks and traps students, university students, they now have full control of all legislative powers, executive and judicial. They are their own legislative, they are their own judicial, and of course they are their own executive. What else do you think? What else do you think the three wise men that gifted Jesus on his birth did? Gold, the authority. Myrrh, which is your health. Frankincense, which is the adornment of your sex and sexuality, of whether you are male or female. All trust laws, ladies and gentlemen, and it is the job of the governments through the legal fiction to be able to rob you of your ability to conduct your own affairs. Nelson Mandela is the page that you're looking at the moment. Nelson Mandela, as you can see, is a legal fiction. The face that you're looking at is the servant of the chieftains in that part of the world, whose job was to convince the whites, and I have explained this to you, under the Federal Styles Manual, to be white means that you're North African, another legal fiction. And if you say you're a black man or a woman, you have no standing in law. That's what the word means under the Federal Styles Manual. When you write these words, white, when you tick that box, white, Asian, you are basically saying that you are under the color of law. Under the color of law, unable to distinguish between black and white on paper. Coloring of the law, paraphrased, is that some animals are more equal than others, which is an extract from Animal Farm, George Orwellian language. To say one thing and mean another. Mendacity, the forked tongue. His job was to make verbal contract, get the entire people in that part of the world to make verbal contract openly by saying that they are white and black South Africans. Once they've done that, they have said it again and again and again, and they have openly said as a verbal contract, as a contract on telephone or even written, they have told the entire world and therefore the federal government that they are nothing more than an illegal fiction, who are illegal occupiers on the landmass, which perpetrates itself as a legal fiction name called South Africa. That was his job, to rob the natives, whether you be white, whether you be light-skinned or dark-skinned, of ever claiming nativity. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, I need those patrons. This is why I need your help. Because as a Chief Federal Postal Court judge, my powers extend way beyond the legal fiction. I have the ability to squash it, but you, the people of the world, will have to come to me. I can explain it to you, but you have to come to me, and you have to pay your way, because I will not fund your life. That's taking advantage. That is like putting Jesus on a cross and saying, die for our sins. No, no, no. Don't you ever do such things to men. You take responsibility, and then you will have power. Nelson Mandela is a legal fiction. The other one you're looking at is another legal fiction, is Mahatma Gandhi. That's a legal fiction created by the Temple Bar in City of London, where he's a member or was a member of the Inner Temple, sworn allegiance to the temple and not the Indian people, because what's Indian? It's a legal fiction. And you can see his birth name is very different. And everything that he did as a protester and this and that and all the things that they like to take credit for are just fiction. And they walked the entire people of that landmass into a legal fiction, giving up their ability to conduct their own affairs. Some of the most proud moments in my life, having gone through the things that I have done so, and believe me, ladies and gentlemen, I have had to deal with dozens of psychopaths and narcissists, government agencies, infiltrators, all manner of these people for me to stand here and blow the whistle on them. So you become the beneficiaries of this planet. This is your planet. If it's not your plan to let, whose is it? Please do not answer that question, because the consequences are very frightening. The American people lost all of their freedom on the back of a legal fiction and what they thought had happened 20 years ago, as in the terrorist attacks and so on and so forth. Terrorism, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, means your own government attacking you. Like democide means your own government killing you. I taught my university tricks and traps students how to stop and correct that for themselves. But they can only do it for themselves, nobody else. Because you or your family or your friends may not want to come out of fiction. They'll want to stay within the matrix, pumped full of that noise. Life in a state of blissful ignorance is a wonderful position, because I have been there. I have been there until I realized a life living that of a lie is no life at all. The page that you're looking at now is J.F. Kennedy, who was put in place, who was a bar attorney, sworn allegiance to the bar attorney, is a legal fiction. And he did a wonderful job of converting the American people of being legal fictions. You know, the images that the Americans have of the 1950s and the mid-1960s was that of a very prosperous year or a decade. Do you know there was about 5 or 6 huge market crashes that put them in poverty? That's in the 1950s. And yet the images that you have is like the Fonzie, a character which I used to love and follow. Happy Days, set in the 1950s and the early 60s, giving you the illusion that the American people had it so very good. No, they were starving to death. If you think this is a recession in the 1950s, we're talking about 10, 15 times greater. That's how powerful the media is in your minds. J.F. Kennedy is a legal fiction. Period. John Fitzgerald Kennedy is the birth name. Why is it that none of the actual physical, factual people on this planet are none to be seen? Because the world is running on legal fiction, and my job is to bring it to an end in the next few weeks. That's the power of a fact. its ability to diminish any shadow games that are played, legal fictions. The image that you're looking at now is the International Space Station, which is another legal fiction name. As long as they pump that images through the television and the newspapers that there is such a thing called International Space Station floating above your head, and that the astronauts themselves are just legal fiction names. In other words, they are actors. All actors in Hollywood, Bollywood, Africa Wood, China Wood, Korea Wood, whatever wood there is, are all legal fiction names. And their denotions of that is identical for your politicians. That's why they pass acts of parliament, which have nothing to do with you as men and women. How many people on this planet are convinced that such a thing exists? If they does, why don't they show it as a fact? Why do they not portray it as a fact as opposed to a legal fiction? Very simple, ladies and gentlemen. If this thing is floated on the stock market, the general public will want to buy shares of something that doesn't exist. And all of a sudden your shares lose value. If you, ladies and gentlemen, want to say something to the politicians, the legal fiction name, you have to put them under the penalty of perjury in their private and public capacity, in whatever name that they're using. But you have to use the birth name. I cannot write to Agatha Christie because I have no idea who she is. I don't even know if such a name exists. It could be multiple authors, what they call ghostwriters. But I do not know. I can never contact her because I do not know who she is, or he is, or even if such a thing exists. But for the politicians who are your public servants, you must put them under the penalty of perjury, especially in South Africa, because they're losing their farms and their homes at an incredible rate, because they are so hearkened onto believing that they are black Africans, that they are white Africans. No such thing exists. So, the page you're looking at is the penalty of perjury. It carries a 7-year prison sentence, 7-year bankruptcy, which is also the prison sentencing systems that the Federal Postal Court also uses. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, I need your help. The Federal Postal Court need your help. I have been funding this all by myself, and with the aid of the other federal judges, the other Federal Postal Court judges, which you can see on my website, we have come this far. But to take it onto a greater level, we need your help, whether that be in research or finance. The link for that is below the description box, or in the description box. Now that I have made it very clear that the images, can we have a full screen, please? That the images that are in your mind is what controls your life. The self-mastery of this book, ladies and gentlemen, as it says, is that you must have factual images in your mind rather than legal fiction names. You need to have, say, in terms of nutrition, not images of McDonald's when you are hungry, but rather whole foods, spelt with a W-H. When you begin to purge yourself of that noise that the Matrix makes, and the politicians and the media do, you walk yourself out of silent weapons for quiet wars. To convince the people of COVID or Corona is to get their asses vaccinated from claiming the corona period for themselves, which is your birthright. It's relatively simple to move out of their jurisdiction of silent weapons for quiet wars by purging yourself of the images that accompanies these legal fiction names. Insofar as that the legal fiction, ladies and gentlemen, is highly effective at what they do, because look at the millions of people around you. They're essentially the basic laws of human stupidity, the numbers of which are so greatly underestimated it still takes my breath away. You have to also realize that the general public is stuck in this pattern. Their willful ignorance, even on the messages that I give and what you spread to the rest of the world through these videos, still puts them in a position of denial. Stupid people, ladies and gentlemen, as the author says, are extremely dangerous. And the definition of a stupid man or a stupid woman is that they will cause a great deal of harm and loss to you as well as for themselves. In other words, they gain nothing but destroy themselves and destroy the people around you. Comprehend what I have said and read the book. It's very small. It's probably one of the finest scientific studies that I have read, expressed in a light tone of voice, a literary style. But the things that are in here have a great deal of explanatory reach. 1,001 of your university educations and degrees and professors lack any, if not any explanatory reach in their explanations. The numbers are very profound. I came across this book, ladies and gentlemen. It's called What Really Makes You Ill. I saw them being interviewed on YouTube. I really liked it. It sheds a great deal of light how the legal fiction will get you to believe the direct opposites of what health is and what diseases are. You notice that in the early days I used to wear glasses on my head. So when I used to look down, I used to read it. And I used to put it back on my head. You notice I don't use it anymore. Because I followed the Bates method of eye exercises to be able to begin to reverse my short-sightedness. Not 100%, but enough for you to visually see that I can read these pieces of paper that is in my hand, as opposed to 2 years ago when I couldn't. I had to take my glasses off my head, put it on my face and read it. Now I can read it. Follow their legal fiction names and they will make you wear glasses for the rest of your life and tell you there's nothing you can do about it and it's genetics. I've explained to you, ladies and gentlemen, what genetics is. Genetics is 100% proof that you have a genie, and that genie has incredible power over nature. Get you to believe that it's a selfish gene, and then the professor robs you of your ability to have genetic expression, what they call epigenetics. All legal fictions doing its very best to keep you in their fictional world, because these people have zero creativity, which means they have to use your genie, your genius, your jinn, your genie, your genuinity, all means that you have a genie. And not only that, under a microscope you can see it in a cell as the nucleus. The genie sitting right there. As Will Smith in that movie, Aladdin, beautifully put it. The genie has a very teeny weeny little space. And in that little space, it's able to express itself in 1001 ways that looks like you and looks like me and the world out there. The simplicity of what I is saying should be so overwhelming to realize that, wow, the genie is not a mythological thing. It's actually real because you can see it under a microscope. Learn to work with your genie, ladies and gentlemen. It will make you a genius overnight. How do you do that? Be genuine. Also comes from the word genie. If the legal fiction, ladies and gentlemen, convinces you, that's what it is. It can even now sell you mortgages. And on that web page, the page that you're looking at is Mortgage Elimination Process. We tackle the legal fiction. That is how we are able to remove mortgages on this planet. Because it's a fiction. And as long as a fiction gets you to believe that a mortgage is what you must have in your life, they win. They walk you into being stupefied. And they use all manner of silent weapons for the quiet wars that they fight. So, have a visit on that page and it will show you that you are not even the owner of your own home. You may have paid it off, but you still owe nothing because the mortgage perpetrators know that they only have a 99-year feudal lease system on it. They sold you something that would expire in 99 years, and it's already expired all over the world. That is why how we are able to so simplistically purge mortgages and sins, which is called debt, from people's lives. The other page that you are now looking at is the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. The word Challenger is in italics, which means it's off the page. Ladies and gentlemen, there have been many documentaries made by documentary makers, needless to say, that show you that the astronauts that got themselves blown up in mid-sky in front of people all reappeared with their names reversed and went back to the jobs that they were previously doing as teachers and professors, and back again to the lives that they were leading, but with a little bit of a shaving here or a little bit of a hairstyle. But they all went back because what died is the legal fiction. One of the legal fiction names that were generated by NASA and the willing participants of the fraud that is taking place all over the world. Thank you very much for listening to me, ladies and gentlemen. This will be my last broadcast on the legal fiction name. There is enough information on my previous as well as this broadcast for you to take control of your lives. I have educated the entire world on this legal fiction name, and as a result, I have walked the entire planet into the misprision rule of treason, of misprision rule of a felony. Anybody questioning the legal fiction name will have immediate access to the facts and the truth. And anybody receiving such documents, especially public officers and officials, are immediately put under the penalty of perjury. They cannot lie themselves out of this. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, bye-bye now.